With 3 generations of experience dating back to 1960, the Masamuto family has designed, built, and managed tens of thousands of projects, earning a reputation as a top-rated contractor and placing in the top 5% of all licensed contractors in California. This show pulls back the curtain on construction, leadership, and life, so you can avoid costly mistakes, eliminate chaos, and build with confidence at home and in business. This is where craftsmanship meets mindset. And here are your hosts, Gino and Mario Mazzamuto.
Today's episode, we're going to talk about subcontracting and basically the pros and cons around it. I think the evolution of this conversation comes from the fact that we are on a lot of Facebook groups, and over the time that we've been on the Facebook groups, we see that there's kind of what they call like sub economy for contractors. And basically the long and short of it is that contractors will go out, get jobs, sell jobs to homeowners, and not have anybody to complete those jobs. So I don't want you to think that I'm saying that all contractors that use subcontractors are bad. We use subcontractors. That's just the nature of the business. The issue is that when you're using unvetted subcontractors, and I'm not sure if I should be looking at you at the camera.
So we should be looking at the camera.
Okay. All right. This is our first time in this new studio, so we're still trying to get things situated. So the issue is that using subcontractors is not a bad thing. It's the fact that contractors are primarily using subcontractors like 100%. For me, I don't really like that whole thing. I mean, even if you're using the same contractors all the time, I think that you still need to have guys on your staff to a certain extent. Because the problem is that you don't have the kind of control that you would off of in-house staff. But the main thing that I wanted to talk about in this podcast was these people that go on Facebook and basically say, I have a 2,000 square foot home that I need to build, that I need a framer, I need a drywaller, I need an electrician, blah, 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 that type of thing. So, you can look at these threads of these guys, unless they post anonymously, which they do a lot, that you can see like just the history, and you can see that they're running their whole company in this way. Mm-hmm. And then you see the other side where you see these people saying, don't use this guy. This guy ran off with my money. So it's basically, if I was to go out and sell a job and then have no idea how I'm going to do that job, and then go out, find people that I don't know, have no history with, and these people are giving them, they're like, oh yeah, I'll do it for $1,500 or $2,000 or whatever the scope. And right. they have not seen the job. So it's just kind of crazy.
Yeah. So what Gino's talking about is within Facebook, there are these groups. There's one called how to ADU,
contractors helping contractors, California contractors.
And so what we've seen a lot on there is a post like, I'm in San Jose or I'm in San Francisco building a 4,000 square foot house or 2,000 square foot, whatever, 1,500 square foot ADU. A little bit about the specifics. There's no blueprints on there. There's nothing like that. I am looking for all the trades, or I'm looking for, a framer or whatever. And the issue with that is that we take with that is that they have no clue who they're hiring. They're just throwing it out there. And what Gino's saying is that then there's people that respond back and they're going, oh yeah, I'll frame that thing for you for $10,000. I can start tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And if that's not a red flag, I don't know what is that, it's great that there's people out there that are quote unquote hungry for the work, but are they really? Are they just going to take a deposit and run? And what kind of quality these guys turning out? And that's not a team. That's just like flying literally by the seat of your pants. And a client is trusting you with their project, and you're saying, yeah, no problem. I can build this 4,000 square foot place for you and all this sort of stuff. But yet you don't even know who your team is. You're just going to throw this team together. And it's not like you're going to throw the team together with people you've done work with before. Like, hey, let me call my A team, start calling these guys around. Hey, do you have any availability? Whatever. I've worked with you in the past. We've worked together for the last 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And I know that your quality and I only want to work with you, which is the way that it should be. I mean, just think of anything else. Like who would feel comfortable working with people that they have no clue what type of people they are, what type of quality they are, what kind of like everything. So it is pretty scary that it
Well,
actually goes
and I
on.
think the thing is the probably the most important thing is if the homeowners knew that they were doing this, they wouldn't hire them, right?
I would hope not.
Because and that was kind of another segment of this podcast that I want because talk about. So in these groups, you also see homeowners asking questions. So there's like these groups that are kind of open for homeowners to go like, what are framers charging to per square foot or something like this,
Right.
and usually they're trying to they're getting estimates or they've hired a contractor already and they're trying to go like, my contractor said it's going to be $1,500 to reframe this section of drywall because it has termite damage. Is that fair? But there was one which I think is ridiculous. I mean, that's a whole another separate thing. It's like if you're going to hire a contractor, don't go out and then like second guess him and then and not only that, but you're getting advice from people that don't even know the situation.
Yeah.
But that's a secondary thing. But there was one comment from a lady who said she was building an ADU and these contractors were giving her, coming out and looking at this ADU and giving her prices. And she goes, every contractor that has come out has said to me that watch out because all these contractors are shady and they're, you can't trust them and things like that. She go, well, if everybody's saying that, then what am I supposed to do with that information? So I think those two things play together. How do you trust a contractor, and especially if they're all saying the other ones are shady? The thing is that most people, I mean, I didn't even know that it's like a sub economy, really. I mean, we've all heard about the stories of contractors going to Home Depot, pulling up and saying, hey, I got to do X, Y, or Z. The guys jump in the back of the truck, they're off to the job site. Well, essentially, it's the same thing.
Mhm.
The only difference is that people aren't seeing that happen because it's happening on these private chat groups. But, the fact is that the contractor is saying that they can accomplish this and they're going to do this. And obviously, they're giving a sales pitch to the homeowner. I mean, every contractor is going to give a sales pitch, right? I mean, that's just, you got to be half contracting and selling. But
Well,
if you're selling BS, that's different.
Yeah, I mean, of course, when you're talking with the customer, part of the job is selling yourself. I mean, you're letting them know who you are and what you're about
Mhm.
and what you bring to the table and what you're going to bring to the project and what's going to be different working with you than versus somebody else. The customers, they're asking to be sold to.
Mhm.
They're interviewing you basically. And you're not selling yourself per se, but you're explaining who you are. And again, it's an interview process. Yeah. Obviously these guys are they're finaglers. They're snake oil salesmen.
Well, and that's
If
the thing.
you're selling a job, um, and you have no clue how you're going to complete it and who's going to do the work, I mean, how can you guarantee the quality? You
You
can't.
can't. No, you can't.
And so if you're guaranteeing anything, A, you're taking on a bunch of liability, but B, you're also making the client take on a massive amount of
Well,
liability. You can't really
they don't
guarantee it.
even know. It's convoluted and it's not convoluted, right? I mean, there's so many different layers to this. Like the contractor obviously is not a legitimate contractor because he's not operating like a contractor should operate. The people that he's hiring are not legitimate trade people because most of these people, a sub fact is that most of them aren't licensed. That's why they're on these pages and that's
Sure.
why they're giving these prices with, sight unseen, like, and I can show up tomorrow because they basically just jump from one person to the next because they don't have any legitimate business, whatever. There's all that nuance to it, but the bottom line is that for me, it's about you're lying to the customer, selling them a BS line, and then basically you're going to get them under contract, and then you're just going to produce crap.
Right.
And then the problem is that now every time that happens, you and I, when we have that first conversation with the homeowner, now have to jump through these additional hoops because they're hearing the stories about how my sister hired a contractor and it was supposed to be done in 5 weeks and it's been 6 months and X, Y, or Z, and you can fill in the blanks of all the different problems.
Right.
So that's it's a multiple thing issue is this bad business, it's bad practice, it's underhanded, and it makes the whole industry
Sure.
have to suffer the consequences of that.
You were saying that somebody had said every contractor is shady.
She said that every contractor she talked to, that contractor would say, well, you better watch out because contractors are real shady and they're going to rip you off. So
Then-
she's saying, well, if everybody's saying that, then who am I supposed to believe?
You keep on asking that question until somebody tells you not every contractor is shady.
Right,
There
yeah.
are shady
That's a good answer.
contractors.
Yeah.
Because if every single person is saying all contractors are shady except for me, they're probably shady too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I don't believe that. And I know you don't believe that.
Yeah.
There's great contractors
Sure.
out there, and there's shady contractors and everything in between out there. They're just like people. Unfortunately, what you're talking about with that Facebook these groups, you know, it looks like there's a ton of shady ones out there, that's for sure. Unfortunately, you know, our industry might be full of them. We don't exactly know because it's like we stay within our own circles.
Right.
And, you know, I mean, and maybe that's the next thing to talk about is with subcontractors. Maybe these are some questions that homeowners should be asking is, how long have you worked with your subcontractors and so on?
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be ways to flush that stuff out. But I think the ultimate truth is because of the way the industry is and because of the fact, and to be quite honest, it's not just a one-sided issue. It's not just like, well, there's bad contractors out there and they just take advantage of these hapless homeowners. Homeowners are part of the problem if you really think about it,
Sure.
because I've said this time and time again. What do homeowners typically ask? They ask two primary questions: how much does it cost, and how quick can you get it done? When they get estimates and they see an estimate that's $10,000 cheaper, they don't question why is it $10,000 cheaper. They just go, oh, it's $10,000 cheaper. I'm going to go with this guy. Okay. Well, it's kind of like you've dug your own grave at that point.
Yeah.
You can't feign innocence and go like, oh, well, I thought he was legitimate, but I never asked for a business license. And it's like, okay, well, then you kind of got what you asked for, right?
Yeah.
But they try to put it all on like, oh, this guy ripped me off and all this kind of stuff. Like, it's so, you know, like a little spin off of this is, and you especially see this in more affluent neighborhoods, I think, because just the fact that most affluent neighborhoods have gardeners. Okay. That gardener has a cousin who does sheetrock. That gardener has a cousin that does roofing. That gardener has, so little old Lady Smith, who owns this house, who has a gardener working for her, says, oh, you know, I need to build the fence. My cousin does that. I'll send him over. Well, of course, you know, there's certain things like landscaping. I think even fencing to a certain extent, it's not that critical. You know what I mean? Most people can do that kind of stuff. And I'm not degrading those jobs. I'm just saying it's not as technical as building houses and stuff like that, or putting a roof on or something like that. But at the same point in time, they know most likely that guy is not licensed to do that. And I'm not saying that that's always the case. I'm just saying that's most likely the case.
Yeah, if it's the gardener's cousin, then yeah, he's just, you know, he could build fences and do you know, some retaining walls, or it's the gardener that can do it.
Well,
you know, a lot of gardeners do all that extra work, and those are the retaining walls that we see falling down all the time.
There was
engineered.
There was one that we're estimating right now in Martinez, and it's a second story addition. She wants to convert the attic space to a living space, right? She wants, you know, it's what I'm talking about. She wants to put the stairs in there. You were with me when we first walked that job, and she had a guy out, and I think it was the gardener but he was doing like outside trim and outside paint and all that kind of stuff.
Scraping the paint.
Yeah.
Sanding it all off.
But when we initially talked to her and we're like, you know, you got to get an engineer in here. We got to figure this out. We got to see if the foundation can hold the weight of all this different stuff. And, you know, we got to put the stairs in there and figure out how we're going to orient that. And we got to maybe take some space away from the living room. And I forget exactly what her specific words were, but there was something along the lines of like, oh, he said you can just do this
Build it up there
and put it up there. This is the problem.
Yeah.
Why you listen? You have two guys here, third generation contractors with, you know, that company's been in business since 1938. You look on the community pages, we're all rated number one, but you're willing to take some guy that doesn't even have a legitimate business.
And it makes sense why. Because she knows what we're saying is going to be more expensive.
Yeah.
and she doesn't want to spend the money. And so everybody wants a deal. And it's like this hard reality. It's kind of like, when you go to your accountant and you're like, how can I not pay taxes? And your accountant's like, what are you talking about? You gotta pay taxes. You're like,
I'm that guy.
I talked to somebody else and they told me if I just do X, Y, and Z,
Yeah.
I saw it on Instagram that I don't have to pay any taxes. And your accountant's like, oh my God. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but that's not real. That was just some popular thing you saw on Instagram. So I get it. I get everybody wants, there's a lot that we deal with in the industry because everybody's on Pinterest. So everybody wants like this, hey, I want to do this kitchen remodel, but we're on a budget, but I want to do this one. And you look at it, you're like, what? That's like a $500,000 kitchen. You can't do that thing on a budget.
Yeah.
There's no such thing. I mean, you can do the $500,000 kitchen, but then when you tell them like, well, you got 8-foot ceilings here, typical house. That picture is 10-foot ceilings. Oh, so we can't make it look like that? Yeah, you can. You got to take the whole roof off, reframe everything, push your whole ceiling line up, and then you could do it. But you're talking about remodeling your whole entire house. So we deal with a lot being that person that has to give them the harsh reality of like, yeah, it's possible, but it's probably not possible for what the money you want to spend.
And like
what budget you in? Oh, I'm at $100,000.
Right.
Okay, well, let's talk about $100,000 kitchen then.
Right.
And this is what we can give you for $100,000.
But like you said, it's them not wanting to hear the reality of the situation.
Sure.
It's like going to a doctor and you got a doctor going, hey, you should do surgery and do this, and you got another doctor going, hey, just take this vitamin. Well, of course you're going to be like, hey, he says if I just take this vitamin, but it's like, is that really
the guy that's saying take the vitamin is probably not a doctor, right?
Right.
He's an online doctor,
but he's telling you what you want to hear.
Yeah, he's telling you what you want to hear.
Yeah.
All you need to do is take, and you'll kill all your cancer in your body, and you don't have to do anything.
Exactly.
And I'm not knocking that because I take turmeric and I take all those vitamins like a million. But at the same time, it's the reality that people just don't want to hear. We're up against it every single day.
Well,
and it's a breath of fresh air when we get a client and you say to them, or they tell you, I want to do a kitchen remodel or I want to do an addition. And you go, what's your budget? And for a kitchen? They're like, 100,000. You're like, cool, you're in the ballpark. Versus somebody goes, I'm hoping I can get it done for under 15,000. You're like, oh my gosh. I mean, what do you can't nowadays? You can't do anything for under 15,000 in the kitchen.
The permit's going to cost you 15,000.
I mean, you can paint your cabinets. You can get your cabinets painted and maybe update your countertops or something like that.
Yeah.
But like an addition, hey, what's your budget? I'm hoping to do this addition for under 50,000. Like, well, it's not. Either this is going to be a super hard and long conversation to have and explain it all to you versus like, what's your budget? And they're like, oh yeah, we're kind of thinking somewhere, about 400,000 or 500,000. You're like, okay, you've already done your homework. You already kind of know what to expect. And again, to get into this whole like, good contractor, bad contractor sort of thing, maybe we're biased because we know who we are and we know what we offer.
Well, of
but
course.
When customers say to us, yeah, I'm getting like, somewhere between 3 and 5 estimates. I mean,
it's a slap in the face.
What I really want to say to them is, why would you do that for? If you were referred to us or something like that, you should trust us enough that we're going to put in the work. There's no reason to go get other estimates because we're going to do the best work at the best price for you all the time. And that's the hard thing if they go, oh, well, I got another estimate and it appears that the work is going to be the same, but they're cheaper. If it's going to be cheaper, then the work is not going to be the same, likely.
Well, I think that's a little bit broad. So I think there's some specifics to that. I wouldn't say that that they shouldn't go out and get other estimates, but I think the difference is when they're getting 3, 4, 5 different estimates. Okay, because I actually think that people should get 1 or 2 other estimates just so they can. I don't ever like to be in the position where I feel like I'm trying to hamstring them to a certain extent or say, don't go and do this because I'm going to promise you this, because I think it puts me in a weird position of like, now they don't have anything to kind of push up against. So I think there's some separation there. I think people should get multiple estimates. What I don't think they should do is, and what I have a personal problem against is when they're just doing that to collect estimates, when they're just doing that to go like, how much is the difference, so I can take the lowest one and basically push back to another higher one and go like, this guy's giving me this.
Right.
I don't like that at all, because basically you're saying, well, I'm wrong and this guy's right,
Right.
and so why aren't you matching this guy's price? Okay, I have a problem with that, because now you're undermining my integrity by saying that this guy knows more than you, and you should adjust your price. If that's the case, then go and hire that guy. I have no problem with that. This damn thing. But
Sure.
but at the same time, I actually like when people get other estimates, because when they're doing it in a way to research the issue, because now they can see, here's an estimate that's basically just some broad verbiage about what they're going to do versus our technical estimate. So you can see why the due diligence of what we do versus somebody else.
Yeah, and I guess what I was trying to say is that is almost the problem in our industry, is that there's 1,000 different ways that people do estimates. The way we do our estimates is likely different from a lot of other people.
I think it's the top. I mean, me personally, I don't see how you can get any better than that.
Yeah, unless they're doing the same exact thing that we're doing. Yeah, because our estimates are very, very technical. They're not, I guess there's probably, ours is much more of a scientific estimate, and there is such a thing as a more artistic estimate, right? An artistic would be, more general. They're basing things off of like, well, it took me this long to do this last job, and then the approximate price for these materials.
You know what they call that? Because I actually listened to other builder podcasts. They call it wag and swag.
Wag and swag.
I think that's the term they use. Basically, it's basically, I think it's going to be this, but I'm going to throw a little bit of extra on it.
Right.
And it's just these broad sweeping things.
So what if they're too low?
Of course,
and then what if they put their bid up against a bid like ours that's accurate? Then it makes us look like we're too expensive.
Well, but that's my point, is that if you're going to go to a doctor, I don't know why I keep using the doctor analogy, but it's in my mind. If you're going to go to a doctor and they say, I've had this degree, I went to Harvard, I did this, I've done this many surgeries, it's going to be, this much. And well, maybe, doctors don't give you prices, but it's going to take all these different steps, versus you go to somebody and they go, yeah, it's a routine thing, and we'll have you in and out in one. Like, I'm going to go with the guy that has the more experience. And I would feel insulting to the doctor if I go, well, this guy said I should be in and out in 1 hour or something like that.
He's half your price.
He's half your price. So I think the thing is that homeowner, there's been a cultural shift. I think, like when our dad started, obviously I wasn't around when he started, but based on the stories that he tells, these people saved up their money. You'd walk in, they understood what they were paying for. They didn't really bicker about it, because at that point in time, I think when he started, maybe there was like 6 contractors in the area or something like that. But now you have this evolution of HGTV, Instagram, like you're saying, these different things. Now every homeowner is like a
high-end designer and a contractor.
They try to tell you how you're supposed to do your job now.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, I saw it on TV. Well, my brother-in-law did this, or blah, 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 and it's just like, I mean, one thing that sticks in my mind is we were doing a job, and it was a full house remodel, top to bottom. And we were putting in an island, and, it had to have that loop vent underneath, because you can't get the island, the stack up, because there's no wall there.
Or the exhaust vent for the plumbing.
For the plumbing, right.
Yeah.
So, we're putting it in, and at that, and Frank was doing it, and he's been our plumber for like 40 years, and she didn't think that it was done right. So what she does is she calls her brother, was it brother-in-law? Some guy, some guy,
somebody.
Yeah, some guy, and he was out of state and all this kind of stuff. And she's like, well, he says you should do X, Y, Z. Nice lady, great. And after the job was done, we still stay in contact. Great customer. But I just felt like you're literally coming to me, telling me that the guy that you hired to do the job, you're saying I'm doing it wrong, because based on some conversation that you had with some dude,
and you explain it to him over the phone.
Over the phone, right?
He's in a different state with different codes.
Yeah. So it's just like, at that point, you feel like saying, then have him come do it.
Yeah. No, 100%.
Don't undermine. I'm not saying that like customers can't ask questions.
It's questions.
You have to
let us explain it to you.
Yeah, exactly. But I just feel like in this industry, we started talking about the subcontractors and things like that. And I know we got off topic, but I think it's all based around the culture of construction. Somebody puts a toolbox on the back of the truck, all of a sudden they're a contractor. You've done a little bit of remodeling on your house, and maybe you and your husband did something, and now all of a sudden you know everything about contracting. Sure. So I just feel like there's an erosion of the industry based on all the things we've talked about up to this point, and many, many more.
For certain people, that's for sure. And we know those sort of people when we talk to them.
Yeah, and that's why vetting, having the conversations you have with preliminary customers is important.
Yeah, in part of our process is that we're interviewing homeowners like they're interviewing us, because we want to make sure that it's going to be a nice process. We feel like you're going to be that type of a client. It's going to be an uphill battle, and it's better that we not work together, because we don't want that sort of relationship.
Right.
And sometimes there's a little bit of that, but they listen well, and it's built on trust, and they trust you. And so when you tell them, they're like, "Oh, okay, I get it." But yeah, when it's like everything, and I saw this on HGTV, and I saw this on Instagram, and I saw this on Pinterest, and I want to do it that way because of this, and it's like they don't need a contractor, because they're trying to be their own contractor. Yeah. They need to just hire somebody that's going to do whatever they want. It's going to be wrong.
And that's another thing.
Hire somebody.
On these Facebook groups, you also see that. You see owners wanting, they get an estimate. I'm going to build a 1,500 square foot addition on the back of my house. I got an estimate. It's, $300,000 or whatever. Oh, well, the contract, then they'll tell the story. Well, I did it myself, and I saved, $150,000. Yeah, of course you did. You did it yourself.
But how much time and headache, and tears did you go through?
Exactly. And you can do that.
And how much potentially was wrong or not done correctly that passed inspection still, because the inspector's not going to check absolutely everything.
Right. And where are you getting these subcontractors from? Yep. I'm saying that everybody has a bad. There's a lot of people that have the technical know-how that can get into this and do the right thing. They're very tedious. Typically they have an analytical mind. They're like engineers and things like that. And but they're watching every step, right? It's the people that kind of go like, oh, I'm just going to hire this person, and I'm going to put all my trust in them.
Right.
And do all. And I'm not saying that everybody has a great outcome. For every one that has a great outcome, there's 9 that have.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. And that's probably, again, if it's Friday and you're talking to somebody, then they go, I can start Monday. That's where all the problems are going to arise, because people should have, they should have a backlog of work if they're good. Just unless they just went out on their own. They've been working for somebody else and they just went out on their own.
Well,
there's obviously some specific circumstances.
But I think it goes to another aspect that ties into this conversation. The point of what I was saying was the guy was able to save $150,000 or whatever he saved. Yes, again, because you did it yourself. You're not paying for trucks. You're not paying for overhead. You're not paying for liability insurance. You're not paying to keep, you're
not paying the project manager.
Whatever.
You're doing all of it yourself.
Exactly. And so it's like, yes, of course you saved that money. And whether we're talking about building a house or remodeling your bathroom or doing it ever, because I see these stories multiple times.
And he probably didn't save $150,000.
But the point of it is that nowhere in your mind does it click, does it think like, if that's how that person makes their money, they're not building your house because you're a great guy and they want to help you build your house. They're trying to put bread on their table, right? So it's the same thing about why we started charging for our estimates, is because of the same issue. You have people coming out, they're wanting to collect estimates, like trading cards, so they can pin them up against each other. They don't value your time. They don't value the fact that you're coming out there. They don't value the fact that you spend an hour on the phone with them talking about it beforehand. They don't value the fact that you're going to spend a week and a half putting an estimate together.
Or longer.
Exactly. So that's the problem.
So, okay, question. How do you feel about a customer?
And if I'm bitter, if I sound bitter, it's because I am.
How do you feel about a customer going out and getting 3 estimates, and what would be your recommendation is if they do, how do they know which estimate is the right one? Let's say okay, let's say it's an addition. Let's say they get an estimate for 400 grand, 200 grand, and let's just say 300 grand.
400 grand, 200 grand. So basically $100,000.
Yeah,
Yes.
2, 3, 400,000. Let's just say, I'm just going to say an addition. I'm not going to say what kind of addition or anything else. So how does this customer know which estimate is correct? And do they just go with the 300 grand?
I think,
I mean, I bet you that's a bunch of people's theory. I'm just going to go with the one in the middle.
and I mean, I think it's a nuanced question, and there's a lot that you have to look at. I think because there's always the other side of this conversation that we haven't talked about is what we call the FU price, right? It's like when contractors don't want to do a job.
Well, not just the contractor, anybody.
Yeah,
I've had this conversation with people in all kinds of industries.
Yeah.
Everybody does it.
Yeah. So if for those that, if you need some further explanation, it's basically I don't like this customer. I don't want to work with you. I'm going to throw out this ridiculous price. If you take it, I'm going to do the job because I'll make a ton of money.
Right.
But if you don't take it,
I'm okay with it.
Exactly.
I don't want to work with you anyway.
So you have to consider that happens every once in a while. It's not a epidemic, but it does happen.
But this sort of thing does happen where people think that they're going to, and why do you think that number 3 pops up? Because see, if you did 4, you'd have 2 middle numbers. If you did 2, you'd have no middle number. If you have 3, you have a middle number, low, medium, high.
So what are you saying? There should be 4?
No. What I'm saying is I think this is a lot of people's theory is I'm going to get 3 estimates and take the one in the middle. And I think that's their scientific way of doing this when it's not at all accurate. It may get closer because you don't want to do the one that's too cheap because your house is going to fall down.
Yeah.
You think that the one that's too expensive, the person's just giving you the FU price, or they're just greedy and charging too much.
Right.
And the one in the middle must be the one that's accurate. When it could be that the one that's too low is going to steal your money, and he's never planning on building it for you in the first place, or has no clue what he's doing. The one in the middle might be somewhat in between and kind of knows what he's doing, but still bid too low, and probably may end up doing crappier work. And the one that is high could be right on the money and has a really accurate price. But you don't know because you don't know exactly what you're comparing.
Well, that's why.
And that's the only reason I say if you should just work with the person that you feel the most comfortable with, and that gets referred well, and you're somebody who they've done work for, and the relationship ended well, and they still are in contact with each other, and the workmanship is still good. Because I guess my theory is this, and it's that book I've told you that I really, really like. It's a book called Never Split the Difference by a guy named Chris Voss. And Chris Voss he was a guy who kind of rewrote the FBI handbook for hostage negotiation and all that. And before I think they were using some Harvard PhD's theory, and Chris Voss was an actual negotiator who just had like amazing results. And so long story short, he kind of created that whole method. And in his book and in his teachings, I followed a bunch of his stuff. He talks about the best way to get the best price. Like if he's going to go shop for a suit, he talks about, how do I make, a student asked him, how do you negotiate the price on that suit? He goes, I don't negotiate it. That's all. How do you get the best price? I treat the guy with respect. I'm easy with them. I'm not beating them down. I never once ask him for a discount. And that's how I get the best price, because I'm planning on coming back to this guy and getting another suit from him, and another suit from him, and another suit. And I refer my friends and family to him, and he takes care of me, and I take care of him, and I'm an easy customer to work with. That's how I get the best price. So here's this guy who can take, if you listen to the book, and it's on Audible and all that, so you listen to it, he'll take like a hostage negotiation where this person's threatening to kill somebody and they want $1 million, and he gets them down to like 10 grand, right? So this dude is like world class, and that person never gets killed. They don't get their fingers chopped off. They come back to him intact, and he's done this time and time again. So here's this dude who could do that, but doesn't do that when it comes to buying a suit or whatever, because he understands that it doesn't work like that in all aspects. And that if you do that with somebody in the trades, for instance, you try to negotiate something, somewhere along the way, you're going to get shorted.
Right.
And
because you're going to build resentment.
They're going to short you on the product, that you're not going to see it. The quality's not going to turn out the same. They'll never pick up the phone when you want more work done, like whatever. Right. And so that's why my personal opinion is, okay, get 3 estimates if you just have no clue, you don't know anybody, you don't know anybody who's ever had a remodel where you can ask around. But in my mind, the way you should do it is ask around, talk to your friends, family, neighbors, and especially if you hear the same name twice and they come highly recommended and all that. In my mind, as long as you have and you feel there's a built-in trust and all that, there's no reason to go run around and go get 3 different estimates. It's
Yeah.
kind of a waste.
Yeah, no, I think just like most things, it's a nuance. Every situation is going to be
Oh,
different.
it's all particular.
I
For
like
sure.
I like what you're saying because obviously that's like the neighbor referral, right?
Sure.
You're asking your neighbor, and nowadays we use things like Nextdoor and rants and raves or whatever. But I would say in the case that they are not doing that, it's not so much that you're looking at the amounts and going, this is low, this is medium, this is high. It's also this is low, this is medium, this is high, but which ones have, like, you can see the due diligence behind it, right? It's a combination of all these things. You should get referrals, you should get people that you trust. You shouldn't just go out and just blanket call it, 5 random numbers in the phone book to get estimates. But you should also, and the reason I like I said, the reason I like having people get estimates is because you can say, look, here's my estimate. Look at the due diligence that I've done this. Everything is laid out. All the prices are here. We have all the material prices, the scope of work and everything. You can see the value in this. Now compare it to the other one. He's lower than me, and maybe he's even higher than me. Whatever. The point is that you can see. It's like back in school, the teacher said, do a math problem. Show me your work.
Yeah.
Right. It's because you can do the math. I mean, it's so crazy how these things spin off. But you have people that are using AI to go and go, I saw the commercial today. You want to figure out how much your bathroom will cost. You take a picture. It does all this. How the hell does it know your overhead? How does it know what you're paying your employee per hour? It doesn't. It's crazy.
Anything. Yeah.
So there's so much nuance to it. I don't think there's one variable answer. I just think the underlying thing that goes to a lot of the issues are, don't go into it with hostility. Like, oh, I know more than you, or my brother is a contractor, blah blah blah, or something like that, and think that you're just gonna call these people up and beat them down because you have some prices from somebody else or whatever. It's like we said before, it's a mutual respect, right? You treat the customer with respect, the customer treats you with respect. That again is, I think, the underlying issue with construction is that people now, when you think about a contractor 30, 40 years ago, you think about, I think people categorize them differently. That was a craftsman. That was somebody. Nowadays, it's like, you're just a replaceable part.
Yeah, you're just a roughneck blue collar worker. Yeah.
And it's because of all the things that have eroded the industry.
Right. And it's the people, unfortunately, because there's, it's kind of like you don't know what to do, get in the construction sort of thing. And yeah, there's a certain element of that too. Those are the ditch diggers, for sure. Those aren't the craftsmen.
But the problem is that ditch digger, when the people ask them, can you do this? They're going to tell you,
yeah, I can do it.
Yeah.
Can you do a kitchen remote? Yeah, I can do it.
Yeah.
And they get it. They do them. They're not good, but they do them, and they do them all the time. And those are the ones that,
But this is also the reason why I have problems. See, you're different. Okay. You flipped houses, but the difference is you had a background in construction to flip houses. The people I take issue with are the husband and wife who wants to buy a house and flip it.
Yeah.
They don't know nothing about what they're doing.
Yep.
Okay.
And they don't know how to vet the people who are doing the work.
Yes. Or the real estate agent that wants to be a house flipper, or whoever.
A lot of those.
There's so many times I'm flipping through Facebook and I see something going, here's another one I completed, it's some guy. Okay. Who had the license on this thing?
Oh yeah. You don't even get me started. This is the reason I don't do it anymore, because I probably made the least amount of money out of any flipper in our area. Because why? Because I did everything the right way. I wouldn't cut corners. I wouldn't do shady, shoddy work. I wouldn't open up a wall and leave mold in there. When Marcos bought his first house, I helped him and his wife, and because I have access to the MLS and all that, I have my appraiser's license, and so I went around and I showed him some houses, and I have the super lockbox key and all that, and so I showed them a place, and I was like, I already knew based on the MLS, I already knew what it was because you see the stuff so often. I just read the commentary from the realtor that was selling it. I already knew it was a crappy flip. Pictures look beautiful, but I already knew what to expect because see, when you look at the pictures online and you actually go there and you walk in and you start opening and closing a few doors and you walk around and all that, I mean, you tell right away. You could smell it. You could smell the house is full of freaking mildew or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, you could smell it. And so I was like, oh, no. And then Marcos was like, no. Like, man, this is beautiful. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, look at this, look at that. And I remember underneath an eave, they had a beam that was sticking out. And I remember reaching up and grabbing it. And man, my whole hand went inside. And this place was freshly painted all over. You mean to tell me they didn't see that? Of course they saw it.
Of course.
Right? But nobody goes up and puts their hand up and puts their hand on top of a beam. I was able to put my fingers right inside of that thing. And I go, oh my God, no, total red flag. And I go, the floors you can feel were bouncing inside. Not the laminate floors, but there's like the subfloor was even slapping, right? Which there was something was loose underneath there. I mean, that house smelled musty, that sort of stuff, but it was brand new, flipped, 100% remodeled, top to bottom remodel. Yeah, they bought it. He didn't listen to me. That freaking place, ask him. It was every problem you can think about he had, including foundation problems, which is what I felt when I was walking through. And it still, to this day, pisses me off that he bought that house. And it still offends me that he didn't listen to me. Who's Marcos now? He works for us, right? Yeah. And now, like, he listens to every single thing we say because he understands the amount of knowledge we have. But it just goes to show that even with the knowledge that I had and everything else like that, there's people who still fall prey.
It's not like you were just some random dude. You were his friend.
I was like his best friend. 1,000 houses as an appraiser. Bought and flipped a bunch of houses. Been around construction my whole entire life. I'm like, dude, for a million reasons, don't buy this house. Yeah, but he did it anyways because he fell in love.
Yeah, exactly.
With the staging. Yeah, because it was staged, right? And so it's still like there's still it really it's like a raw subject for me. Not just that, of course, and I'll give Marcos crap about it still to this day. And luckily for him, the market was appreciating like nobody's business. So they actually made money on the house. But guess how much money they had to spend to fix a house that should have been fixed? Right. So why should you have to remodel a house that's been remodeled?
No, he
shouldn't have to.
No,
but he had to. And so, that's the kind of quality that's out there, unfortunately, and that's the kind of quality that gets us all riled up because that's the kind of quality we're dealing with every single day. When people go, well, I talked to this guy and he can do the bathroom remodel for 20,000. You guys were at like 40,000 or 50,000. How could that be? I've seen some of the pictures of the stuff he's doing. It's like, go with that guy.
Yeah,
I ain't even going to talk about it. Just go with that dude. And then when he screws it all up, don't call me.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing.
Right?
Yeah, no, that's the thing is that I love the story about how actually it was the same job I was talking to you about earlier about the drain vent thing, and the inspector at that time came in and he was kind of like, I don't know if it's like people have that kind of nervous, like they're like ticky kind of thing, you know what I mean? And we got to chatting and he was telling me, oh yeah, I used to, because the house we were doing, it was one of those people who looked at everything. Again, great customer. We ended up being great friends at the end of it.
Oh, you're talking about the magnifying glass?
Yeah. It's like come in and there's a million sticky notes all over the place, right?
Blue tape all over the place.
Now, my thing is, first of all, I understand. Look, you're spending the money. Obviously, there's a tipping point to that.
They blue tape every single piece of texture.
But I got into conversation and he's like, this is why I got out of construction. So we started talking. But if you talk to anybody that's been in the industry as a contractor, why did they get out of construction? What was the number one reason why they got out of construction?
Customers.
Exactly. Customers. And so it's hard. You have to, as business owners, look at that, and not that you're undermining what they're saying, but you got to look at like, Well, I'm just not going to get into it with you because it's like Einstein saying it's like what is it? The something about keep doing things over and over again.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and
Yeah,
over
exactly.
again and hoping for a different result.
Yeah. So it's like you're not going to convince certain people. Certain customers are just going to be the way they are.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to let a lot of that just
Go.
slide off your back.
Yeah, for sure.
Unfortunately, you're going to retain a certain amount of it.
Sure.
It's just you don't want to retain a certain amount of it where you become bitter about the whole thing.
No, but the way you learn is by making mistakes, and mistakes are never painless. So you've made mistakes by taking on the wrong customers that you realize you shouldn't have, gotten into a business customer relationship with. And so it's a good thing that you're a little passionate about it. That means that you learned your lesson.
Yeah.
Because if you weren't, you didn't learn your lesson and you're just going to repeat the same mistake over again. So to a certain extent, when we talk about problematic ex-customers and we get worked up about it, it's probably somewhat of a good thing because that's how we remember that next time we meet somebody and we go, oh man, these kind of remind me of that last nightmare. And I probably don't want to.
But I would say out of the hundreds and thousands of jobs that I've done, there's been a lot of customers who people say they wouldn't have worked for when I tell them certain stories. But those customers actually end up being good. They at the end of it, the relationship's fine.
Sure.
It's just getting through those things. But I always say you have to understand who that person is, right?
Mhm.
People have OCD. They can't help it. They're going to see every little thing. As long as they understand who they are, it's the people that don't understand that.
Sure.
Because
No,
most of the
100%.
people say that I know I'm being a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Or I know I'm driving you crazy.
Right.
So they know that, right?
Right.
So, but it's the people that put
That
you
say,
down.
I'm not crazy, you're crazy.
Yeah. That basically, you're the problem. It's not me.
Yeah.
That type of thing,
Sure.
right? And you need to listen to what I'm saying, even though I'm the one that hired you. That's the problem.
You definitely have to have a ton of patience to be in this business and to deal with all of that sort of stuff. And I think a lot of people get burnt out. Their patience gets worn thin. See it with the older guys. The older guys have very little patience. You and I probably have more patience than people that are older than us because maybe we have less, ring time, if you will. There's less. But also, it's part of the way that we built our business too. We're also detached from it to a certain extent because we have project managers. We have a customer relationship people. And and it's probably a really good thing because if we always did that every day, we'd probably get burnt out too.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's the guys, just like when we started, when you were meeting the customer, you were selling the customer, you're creating the estimate, you're running the job, you're doing the job, you're doing all these things. So you're interacting with that customer every step of the way, right? So all the good stuff you see, all the bad stuff you see, every time that customer has anxiety, you hear about it, whatever. There's no roadblocks in between you and them. And also, we are the kind of people who answered our phone at 7:00 at night when the customer wanted to talk, which is
and we're people pleasers. We want everybody to be happy.
Yeah, but that so it's a mixture of all those different things. So the people that you really see that have that kind of, for lack of a better word, animosity, it's because they stayed in that role for too long.
100%.
It's you can only, even a saint could only take so much of something. So I think as one of the primary reasons why I think this podcast is important, is one, because I think having these conversations, which we do all the time, is great. But if we can get them out onto a platform that people can understand and align with and see, like, I'm not the only one going through this, but also being part of a bigger narrative. I think there's because of the fact that you're able to get on podcasts like this and do these type of things along with YouTube and other things, is that we can start as a community, as a construction community, start to turn back this tide.
It's our little way of changing the industry.
Because again, from where we were at, the 1920s and 1930s or 40s or 50s, whatever, when contractors were really elevated because they're like, these guys
respect like an attorney.
Yeah. Then it's like, I call it the IKEA era. People want low price stuff. And they were comparing IKEA to a handmade piece of furniture, but they didn't, we've gotten past that to a certain extent because people realize that
it's come full circle.
Yeah, exactly. So I think
not everybody wants Walmart anymore. They're going back to wanting custom handmade stuff.
Right.
There was a point in time, and in we're talking about is pure experience too, because our grandfather was a custom cabinet maker, woodworker, and there was a point in time where his stuff was high in demand, and then through like the 90s, it basically started dipping, and in early 2000s, like really dipping, because that was when, like you're talking about, it's when all these kind of factory made Chinese cabinets started coming in, flooding the industry. People did it, they fell apart, and then they're like, hey, I want the stuff that I grew up with. And now they're kind of coming back. Not that everybody wants handmade stuff, but they just want a higher quality. And we could still, nowadays, we can actually get factory made, but higher quality. And we still do custom handmade cabinets, and we still sell them.
Right.
But it's for a while, it was like nobody was doing that.
But and it's also, across all those aspects, it's not just the material, it's the labor, it's people, I think one of the top points was that really brought this to the forefront of public's awareness, because I always say that I think the most challenging thing about this industry is that people get ripped off by contractors. People in a kind of the ether, people know that happens, right? And you might know that your neighbor got ripped off, but the neighbor next to you doesn't know that neighbor got ripped off. And the neighbor next to you, that person doesn't know that neighbor got ripped off. So it makes it easy for a contractor to go into a job, do a crappy job, get out, and now he can probably sell another job 2 blocks down the street, because that person 2 blocks down the street is not talking to the one that just got ripped off. For a myriad of reasons. One is people don't want to air the fact that they got ripped off. There's no really public forum to do it. I mean, maybe you can put a complaint against them on the Better Business Bureau if that person has a license. But when you saw the Paradise, was Valley Paradise, those fires where they wiped out that whole town, and then you saw the influx of all these people coming in to build it, and then basically you saw all the lawsuits that happened after that. It was basically like a cash grab. People just saw this thing happening, and so based off of that, you saw all the lawsuits that came out of that, and so then that kind of piqued public awareness, like these things happen. But again, still to this day, people fall into those traps. But any way that we as individuals can get that message out there as much as we can, alongside other people that are doing likewise, is ultimately all for the good.
Sure.
Because what we're trying to do is make customers as knowledgeable as we can. And I was going to say, it's a hard battle to fight against. These podcasts, I think, should serve dual purposes. They're not only for the business owner to learn lessons and kind of go, yeah, I know what that person's talking about, or try to hopefully avoid things that have happened that we share with them, but also for the customer to realize, hey, look, we're just people like you. We're running a business. We got families to feed. We're not trying to rip you off. Don't, just because you think all contractors are scam artists, that's not the truth.
We should do the next episode on the amount of people in the trades, contractors and other tradesmen, who get ripped off by homeowners.
That's true.
That also happens all the time, because homeowners beat people down on prices, thinking that they're getting a good deal, when they're taking advantage of somebody who is just needs the work and doesn't realize that they're going to break even or lose money.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of that happens,
When we finally get Dad in the studio to tell some of his stories, he can talk about, I don't forget what his name was, the guy that
we don't have to say the full name.
Built all the houses in town.
Oh, yeah. And how he basically died broke.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because that's the thing that I was going to say. This is for another episode, but we'll give a little teaser about it, is that I don't think homeowners realize how many contractors end a job bidder on their end that they gave too low of a price, and they're pissed off because they can't even pay their guys because they didn't make enough money.
Right.
And the homeowner's like, oh, I got a good deal.
Yeah.
Oh man, I negotiated a good deal. It's like, you don't realize how much you hurt this guy over here. And he's too nice of a guy. He has too much pride and everything else to even tell you what he's going through. He can't even pay his guys. And I know, and because because I've had these guys go do side jobs and they come to me and they go, I'm not going to say who it is, but let's just say one of our guys takes a few of our other guys and they go do a side job. And the other guys who worked for the other guy will say, hey, man, I did this job with so-and-so and he lost so much money, he can't even pay us. And I don't ever want to do a side job with him again. And he didn't mean wrong. It's just that he was too aggressive on the pricing. And the customer's like, I ain't paying you anymore. You said you do it for that price. You're going to finish it for that price. But it's a really negative trickle-down effect that hurts a lot of people in the industry.
Well, what you're saying is exactly right, because it's like the homeowner like won this prize because he was able to beat this guy down on price, not appreciating the labor. So they're beating him down on price, whatever they're going to say, you promised me you do this, or can you do this for free, and taking advantage of him in that way, and just keep on adding stuff like that, but not appreciating the effort that this guy's putting in. But the thing, one of the ideas that I wanted, that I was playing with before, is having all the guys in the office and in the field bring in a childhood picture of them and put them up on the wall. Because I think it's important that you understand that these people are just people. They're people. And not only that, but they have people that they're responsible for.
That's right. Mouths that they have to feed.
And in California specifically, it's so dang hard to run a company. I mean, it's almost like they're against you in the way that they,
all the regulations,
hoops you got to jump through to do it.
For sure. And the homeowners feel it, because the homeowner's like, oh my God, why is this so expensive? It's like, that's what we have to deal with.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's the nature of, people that live outside of California, what they call it, the California tax.
And now they're actually trying to tax people to leave because they want to leave California, which is crazy. The whole thing is insanity. In our little piece of the world, in our little neck of town, and in our corner of this, we're sitting in the studio talking about this stuff. It might seem meaningless and abstract, overall, but I think it's important, and I think it's important for homeowners. I think it's so important for business owners, and the more people like us that can have those conversations, I think is important.
Yep, absolutely.
So we're gonna wrap this one up. It's getting late. I got to get home.
About an hour in.
I got to work on the weekend, put sod in my house, because I never get to do anything for myself.
So you're a contractor doing landscaping work?
It's the only time I have a chance to do anything. My son's 1 now, and he's gonna, I need to clean up the yard
and give him some grass to run around on.
Exactly. It's like we all say, it's the shoemaker's adage: we never take time to do stuff for ourselves.
We got pretty decent houses for contractors.
No, we do. We do. I'm not complaining, for sure.
We don't. But
I wish I had more time to do it. The thing is, what's funny is, I was thinking about this the other day, is that you would think that as contractors, we would be able to get more done because we have guys that work for us. But if you think about it, it actually costs us more money than it would cost a homeowner, because if we
told you this, this is my argument. Go ahead.
Because if we pull the guys off to do work on our own, we're not making money.
That's exactly.
So we're paying twice.
That's why I tell when homeowners go, man, it must be nice. I had a customer. She goes, I wish my husband was a contractor. I get all this stuff done around here for so cheap because you guys are charging me this price. It's like, no, you wouldn't. Because if your husband was a contractor, he'd have to pull his guys off of a money-making job site to come over here and lose money, because now you're actually paying. You have to pay their wages plus the materials. So it's a double loss.
Yeah.
So that's the only time that we try. I mean, we got to get the guys sometimes otherwise, but yeah, maybe I could just do it myself. I have a door I got to replace at home, and part of me doesn't feel like going and digging up all the tools and all that. But the only time is when we're slow, which is
that's how I got my porch built.
But it's next to never, and it's usually only through the holidays when we have a little week-long blip in the
or some for reason some schedules don't line up.
Something odd happens, but it's not that often that we actually have any of the guys having any downtime. But yeah, it's true. All right. Well, get home and go put your sod in.
Okay. Yeah. In the next episode, we'll maybe discuss that other things. All right, everybody. I'm Gino.
I'm Mario. Thanks, everybody.
You guys have a good day, and we'll talk to you later.
Take care.